What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. I'm Drew Dinkmeyer here with Mike Gallagher to walk you through tonight's four-game slate. Mike, it's a four-game slate with only one team involved in any set of a back-to-back, just Orlando on the second night of a back-to-back. It feels like a blessing in advance of a week from now, Thanksgiving, where we'll have a full day off from the NBA as well. But it's nice to not have kind of these back-to-back flooded schedules. How are you doing today?
Doing all right, yeah. And the nice thing about the NBA Cup games on Friday is when I'm writing, they don't put teams on the back end. So, I don't have to worry about injuries the night before or anything like that. So I got a little jump on writing for that. So, yeah, pretty some returns today, some new injuries. Interesting little four-gamer. These little, we're like, oh, it's not a bad slate. And then yesterday, my God, the first game with the Cavs Pelicans, just truly one of one so far.
Yeah, let's get into this slate. Let's start with Detroit and Charlotte on the Detroit side. Same injuries we've had most of the year here. G Leaguers are out. The upgrade is Asar Thompson has been upgraded to doubtful, return to competition, reconditioning now the tag. So Asar Thompson has been cleared to be able to return, but he's building up kind of conditioning on his way back. Any insights into what we might expect for a timeline for Asar Thompson?
Yeah, it should be pretty soon. He's going through 5-on-5, so I think I would probably set it like a week now for him to be back, which is a great sign. They didn't clear him for 5-on-5, had to wait for the NBPA to clear him as well as the team. So yeah, he'll be back soon. So those who took him in best ball could probably maybe have him for maybe 2 weeks from now after that. But yeah, we should be stashing him in season long if he's out there. When he comes back, you would think it's pretty safe to assume that he's just going to ice Ron Holland. Malik Beasley's played too well. They like Tim Hardaway Jr. in their first unit for spacing. So that's kind of my read there. We'll see if it affects Simone Fontecchio. Maybe it will down the line when they want to play Ron Holland. But they're playing well. They're 7-9. They've been playing overall pretty strong performance. Tim Hardaway Jr. back from that the thing that bothered him a couple weeks ago. Everything else is pretty much normal. We're not seeing as many minutes out of Jaden Ivey there. So we're not at 34 yet. He hasn't shown much ceiling lately with minutes.
Yeah, the other thing that I'd say is that there was a distinct sort of change in this game compared to some previous games in terms of tactical approaches for the second unit. They ran all of their offense through Malik Beasley in the second unit. I mean, like all of it. Every single possession was geared towards getting Malik Beasley a shot. Whereas in the past, it had been sort of Jaden Ivey, like go create on your own and like open up shots for everybody. And then Malik Beasley would find his shots kind of in the rhythm and the flow. I don't know if that was matchup specific against the Bulls defense that was kind of going under on all screens against Beasley, which is really weird, just like a weird way to defend him. But that was something that I noticed clearly. We tried to take a Beasley under the line, moved on us as we released. So I was like paying close attention to it. But the volume of shots, 14 threes in a game, 19 field goal attempts, leading the team in field goal attempts off the bench in just 30 minutes was wild. It'll be interesting to see if that is a continued approach for Detroit in the second unit, because that would really impact the ceiling on Jaden Ivey. Like we need the ball in his hands. We need him creating, trying to break down the defense. Any thoughts there? It seemed like a one-off situation to me, but I wanted to note it.
Yeah. There's something to it. You add Tim Hardaway Jr. and when Tim Hardaway Jr. was out, it was almost not like a full Wally Pipp situation because Tim Hardaway Jr. still started, but they wanted to find him shots and minutes. And that's the easiest way to do it is they kind of cut down on Holland. Even Tobias Harris, he was almost bulletproof for minutes, but he only played 32 in this game. So we actually shaved a little bit on him. So we're not giving it full credit. Like I said, we just took a half minute off Tobias Harris and shaved a little bit here and there. But Malik Beasley's kind of here to stay, I feel like. Even when they get Asar back, he's like completely insulated himself.
And that's the note for Asar, like certainly stash and take the shot at Asar carving out value. But one, I think it's going to take some time. And two, I don't see the clean path like long-term here. If Detroit keeps playing well enough to convince their team and their ownership, and remember this is an ownership group it's a new front office, but a ownership group that has pushed for them to try to compete the best that they can, even when they've been bad the last few years, the signing of Jeremy Grant, the signing of Tobias Harris, so on and so forth. If they're like in the mix in the play-in, I don't see this team being like, hey, we need to prioritize getting Asar Thompson more minutes at the expense of like what works for everybody else around them. So I would just note that like I'm still hesitant to see an ultimate upside case for Asar Thompson this year, unless Detroit like really falls towards the bottom of the standings. And right now in the East, like that's going to take some time because there's some surprises that are dragging them up the standings. All right, Charlotte.
They're showing right. They're out of the play-in right now. It's pretty crazy.
Exactly. Yeah. And like That Philadelphia, it's going to take time. If Philadelphia gets it right, it's going to take time for them to get to a point where they're pushing Detroit down. So Detroit's going to be in that mix for a while. And so I think it's going to take some time for Asar Thompson.
Good
All right,
point.
Charlotte. Trey Mann probable here with that low back soreness that's been bothering him. They're still without Nick Richards and Mark Williams. The Mark Williams stuff remains dumbfounding in terms of just how often he's injured. And then Miles Bridges gets a downgrade to to questionable with left knee soreness. Concerning. Came back a little bit quicker than I thought expecting, and then immediately played pretty full minutes, played well, makes 5 of 9 shots to nuke us on an under, and now back on the injury report with left knee soreness. What are your notes here on Miles Bridges?
Yeah, not the same knee. I almost assumed it was, but I double checked and it's not listed as the same knee. So, man, this guy was bulletproof. We had so many games for him other than his off-court stuff, and now he's got injuries to both knees. So yeah, late add Q tag for a knee. That's really concerning. So we have him in projections, but he's probably in that 50 to 75% unlikely to play range. There. So if he didn't play, I think they would. If I'm them, I would, and I'll talk about why in a second. I would start Salon here. I think, or Saloon. Sorry, no, Salon. I keep mixing up the names. So yeah, I would start him to get 3-point shooting. I'd rather have Grant as to log like all my center minutes, because the Pistons, they play like this. Play their bigs back, and they talked about this when Vooch was bombing on them. Bickerstaff had a comment saying, like, yeah, if the big man's going to shoot threes over us, like, that's fine with us because we want to protect the paint. And we've seen that consistently. Their rim defense has been great because they're just playing their bigs back and packing the paint so much. So that could be a possible opportunity for Grant to hit some threes, even though he hasn't been doing it as much. So I think Salon would start. And then it might not be. They might go Cody Martin, get another on-ball defender on there. As well. But yeah, I think that's kind of where we're at. But yeah, I think Bridges is probably missing this one.
No Taj Gibson
actually
as an option.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, don't play him. I mean, Diabate has been
no.
Good as...
Yeah. Obviously, but like I'm wondering from a starting perspective with Jalen Duren on the other side, if it's not a situation where it's just like, hey, like we just need a body in there to like eat up some minutes type thing. That's my only thought process on it regarding like who could potentially start, because none of these options are particularly great. But yeah, you think Gibson's like very unlikely to?
No, I wouldn't say. I would say probably it's probably like 60% Salon.
Okay.
And then and then probably. Then it's probably Taj, and then probably Cody. I don't think they're going to do the double wing. They kind of like to break up Josh Green. And Cody's minutes. And then lastly, we got to mention LaMelo getting benched. That was wild. He played poorly, and after the game, it was for Trey Mann. And after the game, Charles Lee said that Trey Mann had the quote better hand on the offense. I mean, he was playing great. 19 points plus 7. LaMelo 12 points, 3 of 13 shooting. Like it sounds insane, but hey, I mean. It wasn't the right call. They still lost the game, but I mean, Melo played really poorly. So we're pretty much throwing that out. We only docked him like a half minute when he finished at 24 minutes. Don't forget, this guy fouls a lot. So we're basically dismissing this from a minutes projection standpoint.
Yeah, he's been great most of the year, but he can fall in love with the jumper in a way that can be detrimental to offense just in general. Like he can have possessions where like the ball doesn't even move and he just dribbles it around the perimeter and then launches a one-legged three. And it's like, that will drive coaching staffs nuts. All right, Minnesota and Toronto. On the Minnesota side, Mike Conley questionable with a left great toe sprain. Shout out to Mark Dankenbring. Dante DiVincenzo questionable with back spasms. What are your notes here? I will note that Terrence Shannon Jr. listed on G League assignment. Jalen Clark listed on G League out for the two-way. So Conley and DiVincenzo, if they were both out, I think we're talking like Rob Dillingham, Josh Minot. It's not Terrence Shannon. Like he's listed out here. So what are your thoughts on how Minnesota approaches things and the likelihood of Conley or DiVincenzo missing tonight?
So new injury for new injury for Conley. I haven't seen anything on his toe. So it is apparently a great toe that, it's kept him in the lineup all these years. So yeah, I don't have a great read on that one, but Dante DiVincenzo was playing through back spasms in this game on the screen against the Suns. So we'll see. They've been off since Sunday, so you would think that time off, considering he's already playing through it, probably okay to play, but backs are tricky. You know, we always say we have the toughest handle on illnesses and back injuries. It could just wake up and one little tweak could knock you out the game. So, but yeah, I think Dante's going to play, and I think anybody else, I'd be like, yeah, Conley's been off. He hasn't been listed with us before. He looked good. He played 30 minutes in this game, which is unusual for him nowadays. But then again, it's Mike Conley, and they talked about not playing as many games, all that. So in the context, I think it's like coin flippy, but it doesn't sound like it's serious. And then, as you mentioned, if Conley didn't play, I feel pretty confident it'll be Nickeil Alexander-Walker starting. We had him starting that game Conley missed earlier this year in that back-to-back. And then if Dante didn't play, then yeah, we're talking Rob Dillingham picking up more minutes. And Dillingham is coming now. They're starting to sneak him in there occasionally. Really, since that game Conley sat, they've been trying to wiggle in Dillingham, like very rarely, but at least they're trying it a little bit now.
Yeah, and it shouldn't be difficult, right? Like he can be the ninth man. It's not hard. So I'm interested, especially you mentioned the time off here. One of the challenges of the NBA schedule early in the season and it being so condensed, when you hear quotes from coaches, at times you will hear the lamenting of not having the ability to practice. And practice time is really important for integrating new players and young players. And so I do wonder if having these 4 days off helps integrate Rob Dillingham into the mix a little bit more, just to have more practice time. Because one of the things, like they had the cat trade late in training camp, they have to throw Dante DiVincenzo back in there, kind of rework things. And I do wonder if that trade further delayed Rob Dillingham's arrival into the rotation, not only because they added more depth, but just because they need to focus on integrating this new pieces. And so I'm hopeful that over the next few weeks, we see that integration from Rob Dillingham, and I'm hopeful it gives a little juice to this team, because I think they need a little bit more kind of juice, with the way that they've been playing. Okay. Toronto side, Scotty Barnes, questionable, right orbital fracture, been in the mask, been practicing a little bit. They're still without Emmanuel Quickley and Kelly Olynyk, Bruno Fernando, DJ Carton, Bruce Brown, Jacoby Walter questionable as well with a right AC joint sprain. So we might get a couple new additions here, one being a very big one for Toronto. Scotty Barnes, usually a very durable player. It's been, him and Bridges are two players that have been disappointing to start the season in terms of their durability. What's your expectation for Scotty Barnes and if he returns tonight?
Pretty likely to play. Went through full practice, and then really no notes other than he's going to wear goggles tonight. So yeah, that'll be fun seeing. I always love the goggles, and shout out Rec Specs there. So yeah, he should be in. Expect him to start. Expect him to be ramped up. We saw Emmanuel Quickley return. He's obviously hurt. I'll get to him in a second. Returned, played 26, heavy back half. They really shorted him in the front half, so I think they'll have it a little bit different. Like he's wearing goggles, so he shouldn't aggravate this injury. So you would think he's got a little bit more leash to maybe touch low 30s if he's kind of got a good rhythm, all that stuff. The conditioning should be better coming off an eye injury. So again, they're going to ramp the phrasing has been like ramp him up slowly. So I think the baseline expectations like 30. We landed at 29 just because of that Emmanuel Quickley thing where they ran him so short in the first half. So it could be like 32, 33 in the high end. But I think it's like a 26 to like 32 kind of a range. So that's kind of why we came up with that 29 there. That covers him. Again, I'd be pretty shocked if he doesn't play. So that should be moving Ochai Agbaji back to the bench. And there's also a lot of talk about how RJ Barrett, who's been rolling, has to share the ball more. And they said they're still going to have them both handle it, with Scotty being more primary than RJ. So he'll be affected a little bit negatively from a usage standpoint. And then also some other notes. Emmanuel Quickley is not even close. He's not doing anything in practice. He's like weeks away, it sounds like. They did shoot down the possibility of surgery, Darko did in practice. But actually, good news, Bruce Brown is starting to do some practice stuff. So he's starting to come back. I mentioned back in the preseason, we were talking about Thanksgiving. So that's kind of where we're at with him. So yeah, that's that. And then Jacoby Walter, also questionable, also expected to play, went through practice. Should be back today, so we think he'll come back, cut out Jamison Battle, cut out Jamal Shed, probably cut out Garrett Temple. Should note, though, man, we are getting so many coaches who want to play 11 this year. And add Darko to the list. Darko said, with these guys coming back, we're still going to try to play 11. So something we'll have to consider for a period of time as these guys are coming back. So yeah, a lot of updates. I think I got them all. Let me just double check that. Yeah.
Any update on Olynyk?
Olynyk. Yep, I got that. He's doing very little. He's not even close,
Okay.
not doing contact yet.
Wow.
So he'll be a way off. And then one other random note. So you've probably seen like the defensive player of the game chains, the defensive player of the game belts. The Raptors have a new one. It's called the Lockdown King. So they got crowns and they give it to the Lockdown. I love that stupid little gimmick stuff. But and Garrett Temple got the Lockdown King award last game against the Pacers. And look, random note, Rick Carlisle went off in his presser yesterday. I saw chat was on that -6.5. That was coasting. So I wish I went bigger on that. But yeah, we'll be talking a lot about the Pacers tomorrow.
Yep. All right. And then I would just note the one thing you mentioned in terms of them like sharing the ball and sharing the offense with Scotty and RJ. I have to think that with the way that RJ's played and with Scotty just kind of returning and like trying to find his rhythm, that the first game or two might still be pretty RJ heavy. I think over time, this is absolutely going to be more of a shared role and shared split. But just in terms of like RJ's been in an incredible rhythm. Scotty hasn't played in a while. And it just, and you can stagger them pretty easily. Like, right. Like at least half of Scotty's minutes tonight come without RJ on the floor. So like you get him in rhythm when RJ's not on the floor. So I still think there's a pretty good ceiling on RJ. He's just going to be priced up, really up for it in all these spots. But he's been too good. I don't think you take the ball out of his hands right now. All right, Utah and San Antonio. On the Utah side, Jordan Clarkson is now listed doubtful with left plantar fasciitis. They're still without Walker Kessler with that right hip bursitis. Colin Sexton still listed as available here today. So without Jordan Clarkson, we had been talking about how the guards had been eating into the wing minutes as they've been trying to just kind of, fill a hole with the wing minutes that they don't have anybody that they have a lot of confidence in. You remove Jordan Clarkson from the mix and the guard minutes get really straightforward in terms of 48 and 48, probably not leaking over much into the small forward bucket. So who benefits here without Jordan Clarkson tonight?
So number one would be Colin Sexton. Not having Clarkson behind him should add a lot more to his minute ceiling. We are expecting Bryce Sensabaugh to move it in the rotation. Maybe we'll see a little bit more overlap of Keontae George and Isaiah Collier. They've been overlapping them a pretty good bit. And then obviously Isaiah Collier took Keontae George's third quarter starting role, which Keontae got back on track. And Keontae's pick and roll stuff we talked about like 2-3 weeks ago where he was dead last in pick and roll handling. Recently that's kind of come up a pretty good bit as an aside. But yeah, it'll be the same starters here. And then we mentioned Bryce Sensabaugh. Expect Johnny Juzang, Cody Williams to benefit. I feel pretty good about Drew Eubanks being a big, this kind of screen-heavy stuff they've been running for Keontae's been. And then obviously Keontae benefits a little bit from a usage perspective too. But man, got to talk about it. We'll talk about Dalton Connect, but from a Jazz perspective, I listened to basically every presser. Longest presser of the season. Will Hardy, 15-minute presser, talking about like how undisciplined his team was. And just really, if you're into coaching pressers like I am, really fascinating talking about how players, he had a lot of really cool lines. He was saying how like some players are just like system players. They'll fit in the system and that's the way they play. When Dalton Connect's going off like that, you got to kind of break your structure. And he was talking a lot about that. And he used a really cool line. He said that some players are better at coloring outside of the lines with regards to their defensive skills. That was pretty cool. So yeah, if you like coaching pressers and you've got time, always 2x it if your time is valuable. But really fascinating stuff. But as he also said too, it was really good that they don't want to pull guys off like one mistake, and like learning through your mistakes is something that's really important. It's just really cool. So I would point anyone to hop on. There's like 3 or 4 links. Just click any of the Will Hardy ones after the Lakers game. But yeah, for now expecting no short leashes despite getting absolutely pummeled by Dalton Connect on the last game.
Yeah, and I mean the truth of the matter is guys get better at, in his terms, coloring outside the lines defensively when they just get more reps. Like this is a young team, really, really young team that just doesn't have a lot of guys who have a lot of defensive reps out there in the NBA, and so they're not going to be great at that. It's going to take time.
Yeah. To that point, their offense has been better lately. Their offense has really been coming up the ranks. They're like way better than Philadelphia's offense right now.
Yeah, no, and Will Hardy's a great coach. And he's a great communicator about these things. But yeah, it's like it's the nature of this roster. Like it's just going to be that way. All right, San Antonio side of things. No Wembanyama still, right knee contusion. Devin Vassell also out with the left knee soreness. No Jeremy Sohan. This didn't stop them from getting a big win against the Thunder in the NBA Emirates Cup on Tuesday. They've also got now Zach Collins listed questionable with left knee tendonitis. And Zach Collins was playing well in his role behind Victor Wembanyama, has been like a starting caliber player in the NBA before, but has had all sorts of injury history, has just really struggled staying healthy. This appears to be maybe another one of these situations where he finally gets an opportunity to like showcase and then he's banged up again. Charles Bassey was phenomenal in this game. I do think it was a particularly great matchup for a guy like Charles Bassey just because his strength is just being big. There's not a lot of finesse to Charles Bassey's game, and just being big against the Thunder without Isaiah Hartenstein was very, very valuable. So what are your expectations for Zach Collins' availability tonight, and how would they replace him if they needed to?
Yeah, it would be they'd play Mamu smaller. But yeah, as you mentioned, so Zach Collins has had a lot of injuries, and I was expecting like a laundry list. I didn't see a lot of left knee injury history on him. It was a lot of like ankle fractures, shoulder dislocations, wrist dislocations. He's got like the graphic they have for the NFL players. They tag everything that's been bothering him. He's like that guy. So I don't have I think he's gonna play, but yeah, we'll see. But if he didn't, it would be Bassey starting for sure. And then, they would slide Sandro Mamakemishvili as the backup 5, and then bring in Blake Wesley, who was out of the rotation after the game. Mitch Johnson said he's not like dead yet, because you would think against OKC and all their ball handlers, you would have played Blake Wesley, but they didn't do that. So, yeah, that's kind of how it will go. But Bassey would probably play a pretty good bit. He's been great since he's come back.
Yep. All right, let's move to the final game of the slate, Orlando and the Lakers. We'll start on the Lakers side. Orlando hasn't fouled yet. There's a chance that, that information comes while we're talking. So let's start on the Lakers side, where Anthony Davis probable with the left plantar fasciitis. Jackson Hayes, Jalen Hood-Schifino, Bronny James. Well, Bronny's listed doubtful, but Hayes, Hood-Schifino, Vanderbilt, Wood, all listed out. And then Rui Hachimura questionable with this left ankle sprain that you were highly skeptical of his ability to play through on Tuesday night. We're here a couple days later. They had been targeting later in the week. It is now later in the week. What are your thoughts on Rui's availability tonight?
Yeah, so JJ Redick, the most information we have recently is that he kind of clumped him in with Jackson Hayes, right? Jackson Hayes is still out for a little bit. He was in a boot earlier this week. So, but then again, we don't have that much. Like haven't practiced since then. And they've called him questionable for like a week now, and they call him questionable and they downgrade him to doubtful, doubtful, and then now they're calling him questionable. So the injury wasn't that bad. Like he didn't go to the locker room there. We think he's out, but we took a chance that Dalton Connect was going to be, possibly not playing massive ceiling. We'll talk about Dalton in a second, but yeah, don't have a great. It's setting up like Rui's going to miss this one, but I think he could definitely. Could be back. So that's kind of where we're betting on the Dalton under there. After that, Cam Reddish has played okay. I think he may have to start to guard Franz Wagner. That's another avenue there. But and then also, if Rui's back, does Max Christie go away? We know JJ Redick likes to run 9 overall.
What happens? I mean, obviously, Connect has played exceptionally well. Probably earned more playing time going forward. What do you think that means in the scenario that Rui is back? Where do you think the minutes expectation go on Dalton Connect? Do you think there's a chance that he could replace Cam Reddish in that spot in the starting lineup? Like, what's the future of Dalton Connect look like with Rui Hachimura healthy?
Yeah, I think that I don't know. So we talked about this too. The other thing that Dalton Connect is interesting when he's sun running. He's been like how often do we talk about Utah? I literally said, keep Dalton Connect in your lineup on the DFS show because the matchup was so good. New Orleans, they're a joke defensively. San Antonio, they've been pretty bad defensively. Memphis gives up the most catch and shoot points in the NBA. So he's run pretty hot here. So we're basically saying, prove it. We took a Dalton under, as I said. So long term, there's a lot to think about. He's a terrible defender. You're still going to need that. So if he starts, you're not going to want to put LeBron on whoever,
right.
and impact wing. So you need an impact wing. Is that Cam Reddish? I mean, if the Lakers have championship aspirations, You hope not. So I don't know. I think they're starting to talk about trades and stuff. They obviously have no big men, and maybe Jared Vanderbilt could be the answer, but Jared Vanderbilt's out again for 2 more weeks there. So yeah, I don't know. Dorian Finney-Smith, like I think that makes sense to trade for him. So, but I think Dalton Connect's not going to be like a number one. I could be wrong. I've been wrong about Dalton Connect a lot, but yeah. Do you have any thoughts? I think he's been just like a great number 3. Is like what you're happy with is like outside lottery pick.
Yeah, I think a team that has Anthony Davis, LeBron James, and Austin Reeves should probably be fine offensively in the starting lineup. So I think just generally from that starting point of like they should have enough offense in the starting lineup. Yes, Dalton Connect can juice the offensive upside in a meaningful way with his shooting and his floor spacing. That trio is also shown to have some struggles defensively. And so that what we've consistently seen is LeBron at this stage of his career needs probably a little bit more help on that end of the floor. And so you would think that the priority would be that. And then Dalton Connect is looking like, the microwave scorer off the bench type role. I think he's particularly well paired with LeBron, just because LeBron is so good at finding and elevating shooters. And so I think staggering them with LeBron, like into lineups with LeBron, make a ton of sense. You can have Austin Reeves with Anthony Davis, and then you have like 2 and 2, and then you put some defensive pieces around them, and we're good. And so I think long-term, we're looking at Dalton Connect at probably like let's say 23 to 26 minute a night role off the bench, probably trying to add offensive punch and shooting. I think it's unlikely that he can get into a 30+ minute per game role without some significant improvements defensively, or without somebody that they feel so confident in defensively next to him that they would be opened up. And then that would just switch Rui Hachimura from Dalton Connect's role. Like I think because Rui's better defensively than Dalton Connect, but he's not like the lockdown guy that they feel great about. Right. If it was like a Dorian Finney-Smith or something like that, I could see Connect usurping Rui Hachimura. I could see that happening, but I don't really see Connect next to Hachimura alongside these other 3 players as the long-term solution. I just don't think it's enough balance. Yeah,
to that point, Rui's like a guy who can guard 4s and just kind of get in the way. Where like, they still like if you're going against like a versatile wing, you don't want LeBron doing that. Like Rui can't morph his defensive game to guard that, in my opinion. So yeah, but he's been great. Like there's no denying. And I mean, how long have we been saying put shooting around AD and LeBron? So this is it.
Yep. All right, let's go to the Magic side. They could file while we're talking here, but they have not filed at this point. They are on the second night of a back-to-back. We know Wendell Carter Jr. yesterday got a questionable tag, but then was ruled out fairly early. Would expect to see a questionable tag on him again today. Unclear if he's able to return. If he is, I assume he'd be very limited. Jonathan Isaac played the last back-to-back set and actually played more minutes on the second end of a back-to-back, so pretty encouraging signs from Jonathan Isaac from a health perspective. He played a pretty normal allocation of minutes yesterday. The other guy that we tend to monitor on back-to-backs for Orlando is Gary Harris, who did not play in the last back-to-back. They have a lot of depth here. Anthony Black's been coming on really strong of late. What are your notes to watch out for on the Magic?
Yeah, I still have doubts that Wendell Carter Jr. is going to play. As I mentioned, he was just doing like bike work like a week ago, and that's usually a sign you need like 2 more weeks or so for plantar fasciitis. And hey, look at the Jazz. You brought back Jordan Clarkson, plantar fasciitis. He's out again. So I don't know. Either way, I'd be pretty surprised if he touches 20 minutes. I still feel that Goga has done enough to keep his starting job for now. We'll see if that holds true. So I think Goga still starts regardless. I've talked about that rim defense for a while now. So I'm expecting Goga to start. We'll see on Wendell if he plays. I don't have a great feel. Now, what does that do? Does that take away? I mean, if you're going to start Goga, like what happens to Mo Wagner? What happens to Jonathan Isaac, who's been playing at the 4? Do you just sit Jonathan Isaac? Hey, we've been playing you enough. Let's sit you today. I think that's on the table. And then, as you mentioned, Gary Harris has played 4 minutes combined on back-to-backs this season. He just like the first back-to-back, he played 4, and they keep sitting him out. So we docked him pretty good. But yeah, we'll have to see if we get the report. I doubt we got it. Let me check real quick, just because the West Coast injury reports are
it's usually 3:30, 3:30,
yeah, 4:30. But I'll check real quick there. Do you have any? Do you think Goga starts?
We got the updated injury report, but they did not submit. Do I think Goga starts if Wendell is in. I do. I also think in this matchup in particular, like there's ways to play the crazy big stuff with like Isaac or Wagner at the 3 as well if they needed to. Like if they need to find minutes for those guys, they're a little bit shorthanded on the wings. Like the Lakers are very big. So I could see that being a solution if Rui is available, I should say. If Rui's not available, it's a little bit less likely to see something like that. But yeah, I think Goga would start in that scenario. I think his minutes would be in the like low to mid 20s range. I don't think he'd play like full starters minutes if they were trying to integrate Wendell. And I think they try to get Wendell like a softer landing spot. Those minutes not against Anthony Davis, I think would be a way to do that. So agree on that front. And then I also think that they could also like that would probably end up de-emphasizing Mo Wagner. It's not the greatest matchup for Mo Wagner, right? Like a lot of the things Mo Wagner brings to the table are offensively as a roll man and scoring at the rim. And against Anthony Davis, that's really tough to do. And then defensively, Mo Wagner has some limitations that Jonathan Isaac does not. So he would be the player that I think would be most impacted by Wendell Carter Jr.'s return.
Yep, and it sounds like we didn't go all the way. I kind of want to go all the way that way to like what I'm full in agreement with you. Our minutes don't fully reflect that. So maybe we a little bit more.
Yeah, it's tough it's tough like to make full blown decisions on this stuff. But yeah, a tough loss for the Magic last night. They could just not generate any sort of offense in this game. And then the rebounding, my God. So we had a Zubats PR under, we had a Coffee rebound under. We lost both of them basically by hooks. And we had the Clippers projected for 41 rebounds.
You cut out for a sec.
Am I lagging now? Great.
No, you're good.
I'll pop out. Okay. I'm good, or am I lagging? I'm probably
no, you're
lagging
good.
with my guess.
No, you're lagging a little bit, but it's not bad.
It's unusual. Yeah. Okay. So we had them for 41 and a half rebounds. They get 49. The Magic only got like 24 rebounds or something like that. That's insane. That's so hard to do in an NBA game to only get 24 rebounds. So if they have that kind of rebounding effort and performance tonight against the Lakers, it's going to be a disaster because the Lakers, if they beat you up on the boards and create extra possessions that way with the ability that they have to get to the free throw line as well, like good night. So hopefully Orlando comes out today and is a little bit more serious about rebounding the basketball because last night was an absolute disaster.
Yeah, I believe they were first in offensive rebounding allowed against them, meaning like they moved to number 2 because of the bad night last night.
Yeah, unfortunate for us. All right, that'll do it for this edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. As always, if you're interested in checking out our premium content, I do see some people asking about cores for DraftKings and different things like that. Hey, that's the DFS show. This is the Injury Analysis Show. The DFS show is behind the paywall with myself and Mike Gallagher, 5 p.m. to 6:30, depending on slate size, each and every weekday. Last night we had a lot of screenshots in the Discord. A winner of the 777 on DraftKings. I finished 5th in that one. I got to play last night. That was fun. So felt like our projections were really on it. Got people on the Cavs and Pelicans in the right way. Talked about Antonio Reeves being the best Pelicans play. Got the late notice on Jalen Tyson starting last night. Slid him up into the value section. So feel really good about the stuff and the work that we're putting out there. If you want to join us behind the paywall, establishedrun.com/subscribe-MBA for more details on our premium product offerings. We are running sales on the NFL side of things next week for Thanksgiving. Sales on the NBA side don't come till Christmas time. So just if you're going to hold out for a month, then you'll get a better price. But for now, this is the time to get it. All right. If you are interested in just supporting our free content, that's totally cool too. Best way to do that, subscribe to this channel, get notifications by hitting that bell whenever we post new content. We posted a podcast yesterday breaking down the Cavs Celtics big game on Tuesday night and what it means for the future of the Cleveland Cavaliers as Eastern Conference contenders. And we also talked through the drama in Philly. Unfortunately, we would like to stop talking about Philly, but it continues to be headlines. So we talked about the Tyrese Maxey calling out of Joel Embiid and what that means for the future of the Philadelphia 76ers. That's up on this channel as well. Make sure to check that out. If you are also interested in supporting this free content, the best way to do so is to smash that like button and feed that algorithm. That feeds our families and allows us to feed you the NBA injury information analysis you need each and every day to set your DFS lineups, your season long lineups, and make your spread bets and your prop bets. So smash that like button, feed that algorithm, 1 week from today, you'll be feeding yourselves lots of turkey. Nom 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 nom.